In this video, I share with you why I'm switching from D&D 5th edition to Draw Steel RPG. But before we get into today's video, just want to share with you what the GGGGs are for this month. Each month, Bob the Beholder picks some of my Patreon supporters to receive gratitude gifts. And for this month of August of 2025, we have $100 going towards a crowdfunding campaign, which my Patreon supporters are currently voting upon. Go ahead and use the link below to go to my Patreon page where you can get in on this month's gratitude gifts. It only takes $1. So I've played a ton of D&D 5th edition. Right when it came out, I invested in all of the new rule books and got a lot of the published modules and made it through a good number of them. And then took a hiatus, and then more recently, at the beginning of this year of 2025, I did go ahead and pre-ordered the 2024 D&D 5e, and most of us just call it 5.5, and started an online campaign, my first online campaign, as all of my previous D&D sessions were all in person. And as the books were coming out at Q1 of this year, I was switching over to 5.5, and I was also DMing. And lo and behold, once the monster manual came out, I went to find the stats for the orcs and realized that they had gotten rid of a lot of the specific stats for humanoids and have clumped them all together. So basically a drow is the same stat block as an orc, as is a couple of other humanoid figures. And so I ended up just switching back to original 5th edition stat blocks because I sort of have no idea why they ended up doing that. I sort of avoided or didn't really pay a lot of attention to all the changes that were happening, and I sort of wish that I did because I invested a lot of money getting all of the rule books, not only physically but also digitally as well, so that it could be integrated into D&D Beyond. And so now I'm sort of regretting that decision because as I'm DMing, I gave my players the choice of either sticking with original 5th edition or moving over to the 2024 edition. And I'm sort of scratching my head at this point with some of the changes that they made. I was sharing some of my frustrations with one of my gaming buddies who also plays D&D about the 2024 changes, and I mentioned to him that I actually liked 4th edition. Now, I know that's an unpopular opinion to have, but because I'm also a tabletop wargamer and a miniatures board gamer, I actually enjoyed the tactical nature of 4th edition. The only thing that was difficult about 4th edition was they didn't really publish any modules for that edition, so it was hard as a person who doesn't really homebrew or doesn't have time to create my own world and setting. It was frustrating that they didn't really create any, and so the storyline and the role-playing aspect of 4th edition was really lacking. So he actually, when I was talking about that, he actually suggested to me to check out Draw Steel. Now, I had never heard of this RPG before. When I came home, I did look it up, and this was a campaign that happened last year, and they raised, as you can see here, $4.6 million, so a lot of interest in it. Because my friend mentioned that if I liked 4th edition, I would probably like Draw Steel, because it is more tactical. You do have to play on a gridded map. You can't really do theater of the mind because so much of the rule set is around tactical gameplay on an actual map. So that really appealed to me. So I came in and tried to do a little bit more research. And fortunately, in terms of timing, they had just released the PDFs of all of the finalized rules and was getting that to backers. And I think next month in September, they are actually printing all of the rule books, but the PDFs are available now. So if you check out their website, MCDM is the name of the company that made Draw Steel. I think they also made Dagger Heart, which I don't know anything about that, but I did go ahead and check out the rules and purchased the core rules bundle, both the hardcover and PDF, because I'm still wanting hardcover books as references. I much prefer to read them rather than scrolling through on my tablet in order to read PDFs. And I did go ahead and buy the Delian Tomb, which is sort of the starter pack if there were going to be a starter box for Draw Steel. to be perfectly honest, before you dump this much money into it, you can actually opt for paying the $10 for the Delian Tomb, because you're going to get a rules light in here that will give you a really good overview of the core rules of Draw Steel and how it's going to be different than maybe D&D or other D20 game systems. And one of the bigger draws of why I am wanting to switch from D&D 5th is because, as a person who's a perpetual DM and has DM'd a lot of the published modules for 5th edition, I really think the cap for 5th edition in terms of levels is really around 12th or 13th level. Once it gets above that, combat is really broken, and even once characters hit close to 9th or 10th level, the battles tend to be a real slog and gets pretty boring. And as a DM, all you can sort of throw in there is more hit points, and it's just a slog burning through those hit points. So I've never really liked higher level Dungeons and Dragons play in 5th edition. And in a lot of ways, my favorite time in terms of levels for 5th edition is really 1 through 7. I feel like that's where characters are pretty excited about progression and growth, but still there's a lot of challenge and they don't quite have all the features that they want for their characters. So I feel like that's sort of the sweet spot. But definitely my players also, you know, if they had a tough battle, would want to do a long rest, even though it's technically still in the morning of the same day. So they're always pressuring me as a DM of wanting to heal up by resting, even though I throw wandering monsters at them or whatnot. It was always sort of that thing where once they used up all of their spells or their abilities, they wanted to do a long rest to gain them back for the next battle. One of the things about Draw Steel that I really like is actually your characters get more abilities sort of unlocked the longer they are in battle. So each round they're getting points in order to be able to spend to do more and more powerful abilities. And there's a push your luck kind of mechanic that the more encounters you have in a day, again, the more points you have to spend and you're able to be more powerful in your attacks. Now, this is also corresponding with the enemies also getting more and more powerful as the encounter goes along, which I think is a genius mechanic that keeps a battle pretty exciting, cinematic, and moving forward, and keeps players not wanting to have a long rest right away because you're actually more powerful as you have more encounters during the day. So I love that. Another huge thing about this game is that there are no misses. You actually don't roll to hit. Instead, you're rolling 2 d10s in order to figure out whether or not you have 3 different tiers of damage that you're inflicting in your automatic hit. So if you're rolling 11 or under, that's sort of your weakest and basic hit. And then the middle range, I think it's 12 to 16, is a medium hit. And then anything 17 plus is a 3rd tier hit. And that unlocks obviously the most damage, but also might inflict some conditions onto your enemy. So I think that's super cool because you're rolling 2d10. It is on a curve where the average roll is going to be around 11. So I really like that aspect of this game. One of the other things that I like also is that the monsters can also be varied based off of the abilities and malice level that you get. So malice is sort of like points that you receive that you can use as a DM to power up some of the damage or effects from the monsters. So I think that makes each of the enemies that they're fighting with variable. And as, like I mentioned before, as the battle continues along, they become more and more powerful. So that just creates a lot of variability with the monsters that they are encountering. The other cool thing that comes with the Delian Tomb is these encounter sheets for the DM, which makes it easier. And I hope that future published modules are going to have these encounter sheets for the major encounters that the players are going to run into. And then obviously you can fill out your own encounter sheet with how you spend a certain number of points for the values of the enemies that they're going to encounter. So that makes encounter creation really easy. There are really only 2 books. It's the Monster Manual and then the Heroes book. And the Heroes book functions as both the Player's Handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide in 5th edition. They're sort of combined together. So it's a hefty, over 400-page book, and it's pretty dense with rules. So I would not say that Draw Steel is a simplified rule set as compared to 5th edition, and the rules are pretty crunchy. And in fact, the character sheets are actually pretty long, and there's a ton of options that you have, which on the one hand can make your character really individualized with a lot of cool features and background that can help you roleplay and give it a history. But on the other hand, can be intimidating for people who are jumping in. Although if you have played other RPGs before, if you played 5th edition before, it isn't that much more. But if you're intimidated by that, go ahead and use the pre-gen characters, which again are included with the Delian Tomb. And just use these pre-gens just to get started so that you don't have to go through character creation. Although for most people, character creation is one of their favorite things, and it's a really good way to figure out what the rules are. But I am glad that they do provide some pre-gens if you sort of want to dive in, and especially if you want to try out the Delian Tomb without buying the core rulebooks and monster manual. I will say that the 2 core books are pretty expensive. So I paid $135 for that, and then another $10 to get the Delian Tomb. So that is pretty pricey. You can opt to just pay $70 for both of the books, which is a pretty good deal. So if you're not like me, who enjoys having a physical copy, this might be the way to go. But I do admit that the books are pricey. And some people have complained that the layout of the book and that there isn't a lot of artwork in the book. I didn't feel that way as I was reading through. And in fact, I really appreciated how detailed the examples of battle are and how battle works, because again, tactics is very important. And for me, again, as a wargamer, as a board gamer, I love tactical battles, which was really what I loved about 4th edition. And now I'm really glad that they're tying in role-playing and a backstory and stories around this world that they've created. I just feel like Draw Steel is the perfect balance between having high tactics on the board as well as role-playing and storytelling opportunities. If those aren't things that you like, if having crunchy tactical battles on a board isn't something that you enjoy, then probably this isn't for you. I know Daggerheart is more story-driven. That's the other game that they have come out with, and the point of entry for that is a lot cheaper. But I think this game is more for me than Daggerheart. Also, especially as a person who 3D printed a ton of terrain, I have plenty of tiles to create for all of the maps to build them out and have tactical miniature wargaming at our gaming table. I'm going to be playing this with my son's friends here locally, so we're all going to be together. It'll be good to be around a table again and have physical miniatures. As convenient as having a digital interface for my friends who are spread across the United States, I still much prefer being in person and playing together and rolling physical dice together. I've been watching a lot of videos as they have slowly been coming out, and there is an example of the actual creator of the game, Matthew Colville, going through the first episode of the Delian Tomb if you just sort of want to see how the game plays. And then I really liked this sort of 17 reasons why you should try Draw Steel from Power Word Spill. I think he puts out a lot of good points for why he really likes this game system. And he even mentions that he's going to port over some of the ideas that come from Draw Steel into some of the other RPGs that he's playing. This is another good video. So yeah, if you want to find out more, just check out some of these other videos that are currently available. And I'm hoping that more will come out as the game gets out into the world. So go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe. I might have a follow-up video after maybe we've played through the entirety of the Delian Tomb. Have you heard of Draw Steel? Did you back it originally? I wasn't a backer. I just bought it because the timing was perfect as they just made those available. And I'm looking forward to receiving the physical books hopefully later in September or October. Post in the comments below if you're excited about this rule set, or even if it isn't for you because you're not into tactical map play for your battles, you rather do theater of the mind, or what are some other alternatives that you found to 5th edition. I would love to hear that. Otherwise, happy gaming. We'll see you next time.